Title 17 U.S. Code, Sections 107 to 108 of the Copyright Law. All media in this video is used for the purpose of review and commentary under terms of fair use. All footage, music and images used belong to their respective companies. Also YouTube, please, for the love of gun X sword the perfect anime, fix your broken system when you are able, because Quint will blame me.
I do think I'm gonna go on a bit of a hiatus from this video. Not like a year's blah 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 long hiatus. Maybe a few months.
But I'm honestly done. I'm tired of making videos to an invisible audience. And honestly, who wouldn't be?
Am I going to be going back to doing reviews now? Have I changed my mind? Not exactly.
The animemories retrospective might just close here and now.
Little did Quint know. He would still continue making videos even through the unfair copyright claims, tiny fanbase at the time, and Gene the Supreme had.
Okay, I think that's enough, Gene.
I wasn't finished.
Shut it!
Great. Here we go again.
What?
He never learns. Does he?
Damn it, Gene! Greetings, comrades, and hello, everyone. I'm Quinn866. And welcome back to the Animemories retrospective. Okay. I know what you're thinking. If you probably saw the intro skit, which you must have, I don't know why you would skip it. Or if you saw the other videos where the actual stuff happened, you probably might be wondering, oh, you're doing this again. You're gonna go all the way back to recording even though you said you weren't coming back. Well, I don't care, because recording videos is my passion, and no amount of unfair YouTube copyright strikes, an invisible audience, because my fanbase is really short right now, and a bunch of other stuff will stop me from enjoying what I enjoy. So sadly, some videos y'all are just not going to be able to see, but since this is a retrospective, it comes highly recommended that you watch the earlier videos. For returning viewers, you can skip this segment, but for newcomers, I advise listening in case I refer to or directly call back to examples from other reviews, even if it's not a related series. Also, for those cut out scenes or missing videos, you can go to the Google Photos link in the descriptions of several videos of the playlist to see a video in all its glory, because we all know YouTube copyright is weird that way. I've read that in one take. You might recognize the cat ears I've used in a few of my previous videos.
I promise. Plus, she's nice for all the kitty fans out there. Nah.
It's also my channel profile picture. However, me and my tastes are not the topic of today's video. If you see the title, which I imagine you would, why wouldn't you? Probably think, Quint, why are you reviewing Fairy Tail like this? You reviewed the Daybreak arc, which got taken down. Now you're jumping all the way to Key of the Starry Heavens? No. this is not a review of Key of the Starry Heavens. This is a new sort of subdivision of the Animemories retrospective in a similar way to my tier rankings, my top 10 lists, the compilations. This is just going to be kind of like another side thing I can do between reviews. Smaller videos that won't feel as crushing to get taken down because they're going to be shorter. Now, probably not by that much, but it's a lot easier to edit a 30-minute video than an hour-long one, only for it to get taken down. Let's be real here. I want to give y'all stuff to look forward to in this retrospective, apart from the reviews, whether those be the short ones that have already been finished, or short ones that are still in the making and or have not come out yet. And actually, the same can be said for the longer reviews. Once again, either the long reviews that have been finished, or long reviews that are still in the making, or plan to come down the line. Though nothing's quite conclusive yet. I want to do sort of what I did with my ranking videos, how they give my fans something to, you know, chew on while I do much bigger projects like those. And I also want kind of an excuse to do some of my funnier moments, because I made a lot of jokes in my old reviews, but I found it harder and harder to do so with my more serious topics. So these videos, which are going to be new, will have a lot more funny moments like this one, for instance.
No, Senpai! No! I love you and I'll drink your blood!
Quince over analytical tangents. Why did I use that voice? Yes, you heard that correctly. This new subset of videos is just going to be me going on tangents, which will likely have a lot of jokes in them. Now, most of what I say here isn't meant to be taken too seriously, since it's all subjective, it's all my opinion. And with this being related to Fairy Tail, a series I really, really like, I want to go out of the gate and say that the particular topic of this rant is not what I would call a bad arc. It's not. Key of the Starry Heavens is by no means the worst arc I've ever seen, and given how animes in general have had rocky instances of filler arcs or stuff that wasn't in the manga, I can safely say right now that I have seen worse. And at its lowest, this arc is a 5 out of 10. So it's it's on par with WATV, but that's only at its worst, and there are some good moments that do elevate it. So it's not worse than WATV, that's just something I want to get out of the gate, but my lord, Key to Starry Heavens is a flawed arc, and I have no shame, and no amount of good moments will make it easy for me to go back to this arc. Things that are different in anime, more often than not, will receive the sharp end of the stick, solely because it's not what people expected, or people think that it's inferior. Now, personally speaking, I have been open-minded and have defended several instances of non-faithful to the source material stuff in anime, whether that be things like filler episodes that don't exactly add to the plot in any major way, an ending that is made to buy time for the manga to continue whatever, or heck, even entire arcs for that matter. Now, Fairy Tail's filler / non-source material, faithful material, isn't like the worst in the world, not by a long shot, but Key of the Starry Heavens for me is my least favorite part of Fairy Tail. And I am sure this might shock a lot of people, because Fairy Tail's other arcs have received some divisive stuff, let's just say. I mean, heck, take the Daphne arc, which was originally gonna be how the series ended, but they decided to keep going because the manga was still going and it was still making enough money. Or take the Eclipse Celestial Spirits arc, where a bunch of the Celestial Spirits go bonkers and the group has to fight them. Those arcs received a lot of criticism from what I saw, and actually the Avatar arc I've seen select few matters of critique for as well, and even an arc that I really, really like, my personal favorite arc, Grand Magic Games, has received criticism for how long it is. Now, personally speaking, I don't think any arc in Fairy Tail is outright bad, and that does include Key of the Starry Heavens, but I'm going to put up an argument why Key of the Starry Heavens is honestly my least favorite arc, even when being pit against the likes of the Daphne, Eclipse Celestial Spirits, and Avatar arc being in the same series. Yeah, the Daphne arc was stupid. It involved an artificial dragon which didn't really fit in with the mythos or the lore. It dealt Gray a really dirty hand because he acted super out of character. We have a lame-ass villain who just is not threatening, and her backstory is equally as lame. And to top it all off, there's a big-ass fight scene that I really didn't care about, with the mechanical dragon also revealing her backstory, which, again, I don't care about. But here's the thing, folks. The Daphne arc is only 4 episodes, and once you're done with it, you're done with it. It's short, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. Doesn't make it any more or less stupid, but at least it's short. On the other hand, I really liked Eclipse Celestial Spirits. I understand the fights are more like goofy challenges, but to be honest, that kind of fits with the Celestial Spirits anyways. I mean, the Celestial Spirits are more comic relief characters anyways, and making them go crazy and fight, but in their goofy ways, does fit for them because, again, they're comic relief characters, and this arc has some freaking laughs in it. I cannot emphasize that enough. Look, I get it, its plot significance is incredibly minimal, the Celestial Spirits forgetting what happened after it. I get it, that's stupid, because it doesn't really even give that much. Though it does give us a more direct fight with the Celestial Spirits, even in their crazed form. So I'll give it that. Honestly, there's way too much hate on this arc. I had fun with it, could laugh, and was able to take it seriously near the end. So, that's all fine and dandy. And last but not least, the Avatar arc, while yes, it was really rushed, and it felt like it could have been longer, similar to the Daphne arc, it doesn't outstay its welcome, and unlike the Daphne arc, the Avatar arc actually is plot significant. So, you know what? Props there. I guess I just wanted more out of it, but that's only a big what if it were longer, because we won't know, because it isn't. And while those arcs had their flaws, and they definitely drew the short end of the stick, sometimes literally, nothing in these arcs even compare. But that doesn't negate the problems here, folks. Look, I get it, you know, those other arcs might be short, stupid, goofy, whatever, but at the very least, they're watchable. This arc goes on for way too long. It has more episodes than any of those arcs I just talked about, so I don't know why people rank them lower, but it's your opinion, it's your subjective. But like, keep in mind, the arc that comes after this is my absolute favorite Grand Magic Games, and even before this arc, we had some really freaking good moments. Don't worry, I'm not gonna bore y'all to death with a long recap of everything that's happened so far. I already said I wanted to make these videos shorter, and while this will still probably turn out long anyways, I want everything I can do to shorten time. Because making an overly long video that's just explaining stuff would be lame. I could totally do that though. I mean, I wouldn't mind making a long video all about recapping stuff I'm already fond over. You see this face? This is not the face of a liar. This is the face of a truth-telling catboy. It absolutely is. And that ticks off the checkbox for an excuse to use my avatars and get back to the video now. So, I'm gonna assume that anyone who has clicked on this video already knows enough about Fairy Tail or has already seen the entire series for themselves by this point, since I'm not gonna waste an entire segment just going over things and recapping stuff, which means I won't be needing this. Instead, jeez, this arc is gonna require one of these. Ugh, okay. Ugh, it's a little sour without the Coke. Ugh. Let's be real here. This video is mainly just gonna be a massive rant. Now, if you don't mind the spoilers, or you just want to hear me rant, then that's totally fine, but try not to take a lot of my babble in this video too seriously. Like, let me be clear, again, I do not hate Key of the Starry Evans. On its own, I will give it a 5 out of 10, which is average. 5 out of 10 is not good, not bad. It's the same exact score as Wild Arms Twilight Venom, for that matter. Alas, no matter how close a score is to average, it doesn't negate the flaws. Believe me when I say I'm actually glad I can compare WATV to Key the Starry Heavens, despite the fact that I go to WTV for so many comparisons. I cannot apologize enough, but really, WATV for me is like my go-to example for something that's not good or bad, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. It's rare for me to find an anime that I am truly split on, and WATV just happens to be one of them. With that said, let's dive into why this is my absolute least favorite arc of Fairy Tail. I'll say good things when they show up, because even though this is a rant video, I do still want to be fair. I'm gonna say positive stuff when there is positive stuff. And actually, thankfully, one of the pros of this arc is right at the start and end of basically any episode. Both the opening and credit scenes are pretty solid. The first opening, Hajimari no Sora, I think I pronounced that right, is actually a pretty good representation of the art of energy pretty well. There's a lot of, for me, was good, and I like that. The second intro, Tenohira, is actually better if you ask me. The opening instrumentals work. The ones here are actually pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. A few other noteworthy shots. The fiery wreckage with one of the secret villains walking through is great. I love shots are always the ones with Lucy and Michelle, especially that last one kind of tugs on my heartstrings. Now, the credit scenes aren't nearly as big of a topic, mainly because people usually skip the credits. I know a lot of people who watch intros, but I know fewer people who watch the credits, but even so, it's like, there's like remixes of it, I don't know. Has a very somber and blue theme, and I really think greatly reflects Lucy and her complicated family relationship. And as we see like Lucy kind of diving down through the sky, I kind of like it. It almost kind of shows that inner struggle Lucy has. You know, nothing much else to it. And then the second credits theme, Kageyaku ta no mono. Seriously, I cannot pronounce this. Like, why are like most of the English but come on, people. Those take up about 2 minutes each at the start and end of every episode. What we should look forward to is the story and the actual meat of the episodes themselves. Now, here is where the complexities wiggle in. You see, this arc was not in the manga, but it is canon to the story. I don't exactly know for sure, but from what I hear, at the time of writing, the series creator felt like the anime and manga were going to be a bit too samey, and there should be some differences to give people something to look forward to. I honestly agree with that mentality, because a lot of people out there would naturally say the manga is better because of source material purism, or people out there are just being weird that way, or if they have a genuine opinion that's actually structured. Regardless, there are a few filler arcs in the anime, but in the case of Key to Starry Heavens, the author wanted to do something a bit more special, specifically with this one being actually canon. So the creator had concepted and written this arc with the intent of it being an anime-exclusive plot that fills in a few holes, but isn't exactly required to enjoy the story. And you know, the author did work with the anime team to make this come to life, and you know, I'm A-okay with filler or non-source material, faith or material, even stuff that is canon. I'm actually okay with differences. And in this case, I gotta give massive credit to everyone who worked on this, whether it be the author himself, the animators, producers, sound team, voice actors. Making a dream like this come to life is actually a lot of extra work, and you know, despite this being my least favorite arc, I'm still glad it's here because they put a ton of effort that by no means they didn't have to put in, but they did, so that is respectable. And another thing I'll give credit is that, another positive, the placement of this arc is the absolute best it could have been. If it was placed anywhere else, I would have rated it much harsher than I already am. But Key to the Starry Heavens takes place after the missing for 7 years plot of Tenro Island and X791 arcs, but it also takes place before the Grand Magic Games arc, and Grand Magic Games is my absolute favorite arc, by the way. Yes, even surpassing Tartaros, but we're not talking about those arcs. This actually does wonders for the flow of the story. I mean, hold on. I know what you're thinking, but Grand Magic Games is my favorite arc. Wouldn't I want to get quickly to it? Well, just think about it really carefully. The main cast comes back to Magnolia after being sealed in the fairy sphere of Tenra Island for 7 years. What's the first thing they gonna do? Oh, take a chance at an extremely difficult tournament arc when they're out of shape and need to train more? Jeez, that's so realistic. See what I mean? Having Key the Starry Evans come before Grand Magic Games actually works wonders this way, because we get to see more character growth and kind of them catching up a little bit before just throwing themselves into a massive tournament arc, making Grand Magic Games much better and easier to swallow. So I will say Key the Starry Evans does enhance Grand Magic Games in that way. Does it mean the placement saves it, though? Not quite. Though I will say it could have been much worse, and the fact that it was placed between these two arcs was the right decision. So once again, another good thing. But I've been beating around the bush for too much. Let's talk about the episodes. I'm gonna have to gloss over a few episodes, so this won't be extra detailed like my WATV video, where I literally ranted about episodes 7 and 13 for literal minutes on end. So some episodes will be entirely glossed over, and some I might even combine into like a single paragraph just because there isn't much to say. And I know that might sound disappointing, but trust me, there is a damn good reason for this. Our first episode is a filler episode, or side plot. Now, right off the gate, I'm totally fine with this, because other arcs have done this, where they put filler or side missions at the start or end of every arc. For instance, the 24-hour road race that take place before Edeless, or the Mushroom Village arc that comes after Lullaby is broken during Eisenwald. See, episodes like that are totally fine, because they make sense being between bigger arcs, and a few of them can actually be story significant, like the Changeling episode, which shows the cast come back from Galuna Island, and it gave Levy a much-needed introduction, rather than just a simple cameo in the guild. See, because if you know Levy in Phantom Lords, she gets kind of brutalized, so seeing her in Changeling do more kind of helps make that scene more dreadful, so I appreciate that. But back to the here and now, though. Our first episode is The Magic Ball. This episode takes place with the Fairy Tale Guild, who's kind of, still on their last legs, trying to get back to Guild Hall, that jazz. They're trying to catch a man who was supposedly going to sneak into the ball. And actually, the particular criminal named Velvino had been kind of mentioned before in a few other episodes when characters were looking at the job boards. So I like it how they actually kind of brought something that just seemed like a now we don't want to do that job. Here they actually are. So at the dance, the requester Balsamico says he thinks the thug dude Velvino is after a ring on display for the ball. The whole shtick is that at the ball, the last event is the ring is revealed, and whoever grabs it can marry his daughter. Now, Balsamico suspects that Velvino is going to use the confusion amongst the people being all rowdy trying to grab the ring so he can make off and sell it, because, it's a ring from a royal dude. Of course that's gonna fetch a lot of money. So, the Fairy Tale members disguise themselves and try and blend in and stop him when he shows up. A bit of awkward antics later, and Velvino is spotted, and with a weird bit of back and forth among the dancers, Velvino actually does manage to grab the ring. A few minutes of fumbling later, though, we get I'll admit, a simple but neat small twist. You see, Velvino actually didn't want to sell it. He wasn't even after the money. It actually turns out he actually wanted to marry the daughter. Because as it turns out, Velvino had known Balsamico's daughter since childhood, and he actually studied under a few crooks to use this opportunity to, to be with her. Because it turns out that Balsamico, complained back then when his daughter and Velvino knew each other in their academy days. Because Velvino was not a noble or a rich person, and obviously with Balsamico being a rich guy, he's like, no, you have to marry someone, it's blah 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 blah. Even though the daughter actually did really like Velvino, and I actually really like how this kind of episode does have a good little, not complex, but small message about loving someone for who they are versus what they can do. And the daughter actually does accept his proposal, moved by his feelings still being there after Balsamico forbade Velvino from seeing his daughter. And Velvino actually does honorably turn himself in to do his time and come out with his new wife ready. So, that's it for the first episode, and actually, it's not too shabby. It really is just a doofy side thing, and Fairy Tale you know, the members, the guild mates, they didn't really do that much but push along the story here, and it is a little bit sad. And I get, you know, they're doing good deeds and all that, but I mean, the magic ball isn't really even a bad episode. It's fine on its own. It's inoffensive. It's just really standard, and despite the fact that it does have a little sweet reveal, it really just isn't all that interesting. But, you know, I'll give it credit and I'll say that this episode is fine on its own. I'll give it that, considering the fact that there is worse. But now let's move on to episode 2. So sour. Ugh. I couldn't even swallow it. Jeez, I need to get more Coke. Mixing Jack and Coke makes that stuff actually a lot more easier to drink. Ugh, I can't stall anymore. The second episode of Key of the Starry Heavens. True Scoundrel, the Jiggle Butt Gang. This episode was rated the absolute lowest episode on a site that ranks episodes, Episode Ninja, and I certainly see why. Like, only one other episode came close, and I don't remember this episode being particularly low on Episode Ninja, but the only other episode that personally got to me was Fairy Tale of the Dead Men during the Eclipse Celestial Spirit arc. The only reason why I didn't like the episode is that did Ichiya, a character that actually grew on me a lot during the series, they really gave him a dirty hand and kind of made him act out of character, which made me rethink my feelings, but God, it's hopeless. I can't delay it any longer. This stupid-ass episode has Natsu, Wendy, Lucy, Plu, Carla, and Happy on a train. They're guarding a giant crate of gold that's supposed to be delivered, and supposedly some thugs are going to attack it. Now, I like a good train set piece, don't get me wrong, but the thieves are this group of incredibly stupid and incompetent, cringeworthy idiots called the Jiggle Butt Gang. It is so dumb that Natsu, when he is motion sick, doesn't even think of them as a threat and just lets them pass by. Of course, all the gross out humor is here with literally every single butt joke and fan service you can think of. And worst of all, Wendy. Look, I love you, Wendy. I think you're a really cute character. And I get you were, you know, trying to play along. I get the idea. But you're so much better than the Sky Dragon Slayer. You literally got dealt such a stupid role in this episode. And it's sad to think that I really like Wendy. And apart from that, it's just goofy action and... No, not even goofy. You know, it's not even goofy. It's not like funny goofy. It's like stupid goofy. There's just not much else to say here. They send the scoundrel flying, deliver the gold, and despite the fact they were sent literally to the distance, the Jigglebutt Gang are still fine, and use a minecart despite not really doing that well. They still want to be criminals because, I don't know, perhaps they're trying to be the new Team Rocket or whatever. And that is literally it. Look, I know humor is subjective and all, but this is just insulting. Like, Fairy Tail had great humor in the past, and even great fan service, but this is just baffling. Like, I don't know if it was like, you know, they wanted you to try a different type of humor or whatever, but like, how do I phrase it? Look, there's running out of ideas, and there's trying too hard, and this, in my opinion, is a case of the latter. Now let's move on from this awful episode. Surprisingly, I have even less to say about the next one, Terror of Invisible Lucy. I mean, it's better than the last one, for sure. I'd even say it's... maybe I prefer the Magic Ball, but it doesn't matter. But this episode plays it so safe that it might as well just be mediocre. I mean, I like this segment at the start where, you know, Happy is reading Lucy's story because, you know, Lucy's writing. I really like that. And I think the idea of a character being invisible can go a lot of ways. Here's the issue. It feels way too similar to the Changeling episode where Levy first is massively used, and that episode was story significant. It also kind of shares some of the antics of the special request Watch Out for the Guy You Like episode where Julia tries to buy a love potion. I could spend this entire description comparing the two, but I'm not going to. Why bother talk about Terror of the Invisible Lucy when Changeling and Special Request are just better episodes? It's not that much more complex, people. They're too samey, and I would much rather watch the first two since they did it better anyways. Now for the next episode, where the main story kicks off. However, even this one isn't too great. I'll give props to it for being significant in introducing Lucy's sort of sister, Michelle. It's complicated. I mean, if her relationship to Father Jude was difficult, her mother Layla is dead, and her family estate is sold, then things aren't going to be that simple here either. I will say there is a really heartwarming sense of emotion between Lucy and Michelle. She hasn't seen her family since, well, her mother's been dead. Her father only recently died. And I really do think Michelle adds a lot to Lucy from like a family's perspective, even if it's a little bit weird and all that jazz. I mean, they go out of their way to say Lucy and Michelle had known each other when they were really, really young, but they just weren't that close since at a very early age. They were separated after the death of Layla. Kind of caused a situation at the Hartfield family estate. Now, this, in my opinion, makes Michelle the most interesting character in the entire arc, since she gives something to Lucy that I kind of wanted, more development. Apart from that, though, we have a gambling bear villain guy called Jackpot burn a few churches. And we also see Michelle explain that after hearing Jude's death, she read his will, and in there it stated that Jude wanted something to be handed down to Lucy that was in Michelle's possession. It's a large clock hand she carried in a case, and other than that, not much else happens here. Yeah, I basically used this entire paragraph just for Michelle, since the rest of the scenes in the episode aren't just all that noteworthy. And speaking of noteworthy, our next episode actually sounds promising. Turbulent Showdown Natsu vs. Loxus, I'm sure actually maybe had a lot of people hyped. It plans for a rematch between Natsu and Loxus on friendlier terms, with the Lightning Dragon Slayer having now redeemed and back in the guild. A more sportsmanship-like duel that's just kind of for funsies. And for Natsu to have some glory and flex and all that jazz. However, half of this episode is spent for Gray and Erza to go out on a side job, kind of get some of their powers back, and they actually run into a old duo of enemies from the Everloo Mansion during Daybreak Arc, those being the Vanished Brothers. And of course, Gray and Erza win because they're main characters. And then, only 18 minutes into the episode, do Natsu and Loxus actually fight. And he gets his ass knocked out in one hit. And then Gajo runs off. Wow. How lame. Look, if they wanted it to be a surprise, then this would have worked out. What's the problem? They already did the same exact one-hit over friendly duel with Erza and Natsu before Galuna Island. They literally just rehashed an idea, put in a side fight with Gray and Erza fighting the Vanished Brothers, and made it with Natsu and Loxus instead. Weak. Absolute weak sauce. After that tedious slog is Target Lucy. Okay, now we're finally getting back to form because I can say a bit more. Not that it's much. So this arc does something that I find kinda cool. We have two different villain clans, the Zentopia Church, and much later down the line, the reborn Arashian Saints from the Nirvana arc. The Zentopia Church actually has Earthland counterparts of characters who were originally introduced in Edilus. See, that is actually kinda cool. We saw Scary Lucy, Erza Nightwalker, and Nietzsche, as well as other Fairy Tail Guild members and characters in Magnolia who had Edilus parallel universe counterparts. So showing the Earthland versions of characters that were originally introduced in Edilus is kind of cool, and I like how them being in a church's Legion Corps explains why nobody batted them a second eye, because until the pieces of the Infinity Claw came into the picture, they didn't really have a reason to go in with all the guild drama. These characters, though, they suck. Look, I much rather would have the Adderless versions, and I have no shame in saying that. To be fair, we do have 100% newly made fill-ins for Erza Nightwalker and Panther Lily, two characters who joined Fairy Tail even after Adderless, but it doesn't save them. Coco tries way too hard to be the cocky Sonic superfast wannabe. Now, again, I get the trope, but it's been done before in Fairy Tail. Twice! Twice, not once, like the Natsu versus Loxus one thing. This was done before twice, so it's even less forgivable. They did this with Jet, especially in the 24-hour road race episode, and Sawyer, also known as Racer, of the Irashian Seis, was basically a better overconfident speedster. Okay, yeah, Coco can run on walls, but who cares? It's virtually the same ability and character type, even with that extra utility. Next up is Hughes. I'm sort of split on. Having Hughes' Earthland variant actually be a female named Mary is fine. The powers she has can actually control living things, not just inanimate objects, which at least makes the power different enough, but the personality and attitude is way too samey, and it makes me feel like, Like, I'm not exactly against it. I think Mary is passable, and I guess they had to keep something similar apart from just visuals to give the same, so I'll give Mary a pass. I just wanted more. But next, Sugar Boy. Oh God, Sugar Boy, what did they do to you? Like, jeez, what a stupid swap. You went from an actually funny dude with a TV-style announcer voice.
It activates the Dragon Chain Cannon. What is that? Sorry, the rest is classified.
For some unknown reason, only has an accent when saying the name of your weapon, the Rosa Espada.
Behold the power of my glorious magic weapon, the Rosa Espada. It may in fact freeze, but my Rosa Espada can soften anything it touches. I can make anything softer. With my Rosa Espada!
Rosa Espada! Rosa Espada!
Rosa Espada.
You also had a really flamboyant personality with some really witty lines.
Now, I'm not particularly fond of holding hands with other men at length, so would you mind letting go?
And you had one of the funniest fights with Gray that made fun of so many anime tropes down to the screaming back and forth.
The key!
But your Earthland counterpart is this? Like, ew! Not even your witty lines do you justice here. Like, wait, why is your power controlling slimes with your voice anyways? That has nothing to do with Sugar Boy before. Rest in peace, Sugar Boy. Your Adderless days will be missed. Next! Panther Lily's replacement is another XC named Samuel. I'll say, okay, I'm gonna give Samuel the edge over Mary because he does at least have more originality to him. And I get the whole brains versus brawn thing they're going with Panther Lily, but the fight is just not all that remarkable. Look, I don't expect flying cat creatures to have big epic fights, but it's just a little too standard. Even so, I'll give Samuel a pass as well, but still, I prefer Panther Lily Madness anyways. Nightwalker's replacement is meh. Dan Straight has the good lines, he has the wit. His fight is actually okay. He is kind of funny, I think he's likable enough, so I'll give him a pass as well. But, come on people, you probably prefer Nightwalker anyways. And he's still overly simple, but I'll still extend the olive branch to him. The only character I liked more than their Earthland, or their Edalus original, was Byro. He actually did make a pretty significant improvement. You see, in Edalus, Byro is just a cackly old science octopus alchemist guy. But here, he's more kind of like a stoic, kind of sensei-ish wise warrior. Now, magic nullification is actually a pretty good ability for him, and even without that, physically, this old guy has got hand-to-hand combat down. He still rides on top of an octopus, which keeps that part in. But even so, his fights just aren't that cool. What's the problem with that? They are with Gildarts. Freaking Gildarts. How can you not make that cool? You're Byro. You're fighting Crush Magic, Prosthetic Arm, Strongest Fairy Tale Wizard, Father of Kana, and a man who survived a fight with Acnologia. Freaking Gildarts, and the fight just isn't that cool. I mean, sure, you know, it's nice to see Gildarts get into some combat, but like, Gildarts for so much of the fight just does the same thing over and over and over and over, and, you know, Byro just nullifying his magic. It makes Gildarts kind of look like an idiot, and I'm like, why? This is Gildarts we're talking about here. But even so, weak fight aside, I still think Byro is an improvement. They also get this green crossy road art style dinosaur guy named Gutman, but he's not that important. And really, he's just a tough reinforcement fighter for later duels. Finally is Cardinal Lapointe, who is obviously the bad guy, posing among the church, and his motives seem really unclear for the majority of the arc. And this is because, of course it is, the dude gets shafted in favor of the surprise reveal of the second villain faction, the Neo-Arashian Seis. Now that we talked about the villains of this episode, how is the actual story itself? Well, it's mostly just a bunch of flailing around, you know, them trying to fight stuff off, Lucy protecting Michelle, showing off the character's powers from the Zentopia Church. And, you know, despite me saying, you know, the bad stuff about the other characters, this episode was fine. It demonstrated the power, so I'll give it that. But the next 3 episodes are so slow that I might as well just dedicate an entire paragraph to them, since there's so little to talk about. The Fury of Legion is just more demonstration of the core power, and while the core do manage to overpower most of the guildmates at that point, they do manage to escape. Lucy and Michelle get the idea that the Infinity Clock piece they have, Jude handed down to them, might be related to the Zentopia Church's suspicions. So, in the next episode, The Key of the Starry Heavens, yeah, just reuse the name of the arc, why don't you? The guild decides to get the idea to look at Jude's estate, see if maybe any clues were left behind. It isn't until they go to the library, and we do get some nice small moments of bonding between Lucy and Michelle, which is nice. And then finally, after doing a lot of really, really unclear searching, they find what Jude had hidden in his library, the clue. It's a picture book called Key of the Starry Heavens. Yeah, just reuse the arc's name and the episode name, and reuse the episode name for the book in the episode's name. That was really confusing. Brief scuffle with Sam and Dan later, and the info is split between the church's core and Fairy Tale Guild. The next episode, Travel Companions, just reveals the contents of the picture book. It tells the tale of a young girl searching for pieces to the Infinity Clock, which is a magical item that can influence time in such a precise and flexible way. The girl wanted to do so to bring back her friends and family, who she had lost. After collecting all the pieces and bringing the Infinity Clock together, the girl learns why the unstable fabric of time isn't supposed to be tampered with. And for her transgressions, the girl suffers a traumatic fate from the poor decision. Wow. Fucking wow. They literally revealed a twist that early. Yet the characters don't know it? Lucy and Michelle are like, oh my god, what does this mean? This kid's book has a really sinister ending, huh? Like, holy jumping jelly donuts! Why is everyone so daft here? Like, okay, I get what they wanted to go for. They think they're supposed to collect the clock parts before the church can. When they mistake it, because they're actually supposed to not collect the clock pieces, they just don't phrase it that way. They don't phrase it that way. It's like, I get what they were going for, but it wasn't shown or really even phrased that way. So it comes off as the characters being stupid. And worst of all, this dumbness goes on for way too long. Like, if they just kind of assume this at the start and a few episodes, like 2 or so episodes down the line, maybe. No, it goes on for like a quarter of the arc. And it goes on for way too long. The pacing in this arc is that bad. Well, actually, I don't know. Because I feel like the pacing is like the pacing is a bit too general of a term. It's like, the writing... Like, it's so hard to describe this, even with the script right in front of me. Like, there's just too much going on in this arc. Too early as well, mind you. I mean, the Magic Council is trying to find Jackpot, the bear-burning church gambling guy. The Zentopia church cores are trying to get the clock parts before Fairy Tail. Lucy and Michelle are trying to honor Jude's last will. And Fairy Tail is just sort of mashed into the middle of this. And it's like, what am I supposed to be thinking here? Now, if you thought these next 3 episodes were forgettable, then you might be surprised to say that there is more. The next 5 episodes, Labyrinth Capriccio, Footprints of the Myth, True Scoundrels Once Again, Defying Calculation, and The Course of the Holy War, are just disjointed cutaways between action scenes. I really didn't care about Dan or Samuel or the other core members' motives because they'll be gone after this arc anyway, so they're being an exclusive. The Jiggle Butt Gang return when they didn't need to, and the party have a dragged out fight with Byro over the last clock piece until the next episode finally gives me something kind of interesting to talk about. Even so, I have to say this. Are you noticing a pattern here? I've been kind of putting it off, but I think the time has come. The biggest issue here isn't the characters. It's not the visuals, not the audio. I wouldn't even call the story itself bad. The action scenes, while weaker, aren't, like, terrible. And it's not even the overall purpose, since as I explained before, I do think putting this between Grand Magic Games and X791 arc, as well as honoring Jude's last will, is a good idea for a story of Lucy. But the problem here, it's not even the pacing. You know what it is? The god-awful rate of progression. I don't know whether to call it pacing or writing, but I'm just gonna say progression. Without repeating myself and going over every single detailed thing, I can describe the entire story in a single paragraph so far. Fairy Tail helps Count Balmasicle at a ball. The criminal guy Velvino isn't evil. They also encounter the Jiggle Butt Gang who try and sabotage a train of gold. The next day, Lucy has some invisible antics. Michelle goes to Fairy Tail to see her sort of sister, Lucy. She also explains Jude's last will and gives him a piece of the infinity clock he had in his possession. Jackpot is burning down churches, and the council are trying to track him down as this goes on. Natsu and Gagio have a spar with Lox that ends in one hit. Original Edalus characters, Earthland variants, reveal themselves and suspect Lucy plus Michelle for having the Infinity Claws and think maybe they have some role in Jackpot's motive. Fairy Tail manages to hold off their attackers with the help of the Heartfeely sisters. They go to Jude's estate to dig up more clues. A picture book reveals the twist way too early, like the dragon in WATV. Fairy Tail mistakenly assumes they have to collect the clock pieces, so they hitch a ride with some archaeologists to split up and find a certain location to do so, and then they fight characters until a twist is revealed. Okay, you got all that? Well, you might be wondering, why did I even bother to go into detail for every single episode if I could have described it so shortly? I did this intentionally, because that quite literally is the exact problem. Yes, In my scripting, I am reflecting the same problem to prove to you, the viewers, that this arc wastes so much time. Now, am I any better for using that exact strategy in my scripting? No, but I'm trying to prove a point here, people. It's like, this arc has way more cutaways than I care to count. Like, remember in other fairy tale arcs, during fight scenes especially, there was rarely any cutaways. Here, in certain fight scenes, they cut away in the middle of, because they have to jump and see what other characters are doing, because you'd be wondering. There's too much going on. And because they're constantly cutting away to other people at other places, how this arc progresses is so stunted and slow. Like, that short little description of everything that happened feels minimal compared to the smorgasbord I've done before this. Now, let's take a look at things here. How many episodes is Key of the Starry Heavens as a whole? 26. Now, okay, that's actually not too bad. That's not even the longest arc we've seen in the series thus far. Though, that pitifully lame description of events, how many episodes does that cover? 14. No joke, over half of this arc has been wasted time for fluffing out this lame jumble. Now let's move on to the next episode. Time begins to tick. It wraps up the Byro fight. The Infinity Clock comes together. Cardinal LaPointe is pleased his plan is going well. And then out of nowhere, the Neo-Arashian Seis appear. Despite them having a hidden member who won't be there until later on, and yes, the series does make fun of the fact that there's actually 7 members of the Arashian Seis, but I just figured I'd point that out in case you didn't get it. Number 1 is Macbeth Midnight, who takes over the role of the previous leader, Brain/Zero. Heck, Midnight himself even calls himself Brain the Second this arc. There is also Eric Cobra, the Poison Dragon Slayer, Sora no Angel, she used to be a celestial wizard, and how Lucy also got Ares' key, but now she has a different summoning power. We have Sawyer Racer, the previously mentioned character that's the cocky speed guy, when I was talking about Coco. So if Coco's going to be the speed character, yet Sawyer's here anyways, then what was the point of having her be the speed character? Whatever. There's Aragorn the Grim Reaper from the Eisenwald arc, but his memory got messed up. And you know, I actually do appreciate Aragorn being here. There is Imitatia, she's the secret member, and also a neat little Easter egg, she's also the, in the intro, the character walking through the fire, that's her. I really like that twist. And finally, Jackpot, who is actually the stick, Clodoa, in a mascot costume. Yeah, all of this is revealed in like the last 3 minutes of the episode, so whoopee. As if I hadn't already had to mash and gloss episodes already, the next 4 are just jumping around from place to place and scuffling, exploring with more exposition. The only really noteworthy things are the Neo-Arashian Seis escape after revealing themselves, getting the clock, Gutman is hired by the church, Fairytale realizes they weren't supposed to collect the clock pieces, way too late I might add. Gildarts finds some clues, Michelle seems emotionally struck by all she's gone through at this point, and we do get an admittedly good fight with Aragorn, but it doesn't save 4 episodes of what is basically stalling. Now for an actually good episode, one that I actually could see myself going back to. We see most of the members reveal what they gave up for. Midnight gave up his dreams, Cobra gave up his eye, Angel reduces her lifespan, Racer goes feral, Aragorn loses memories, Clodoa is a stick in a costume, so I don't know what he could possibly give, and finally, Imitation. Now, here is where the twist is revealed, and actually, in my opinion, the best part of this arc. The hidden member of the Arashian Seis Imitatia is Michelle. And I mean, Lucy is devastated, thinking that this was a betrayal. She's understandably really shook up about this because Imitatia, aka Michelle, basically threw away her family trust, and Lucy, apart from that, her family is basically gone. And it's kind of sad to think that I kind of did feel for Michelle, and I could kind of see almost Michelle doubting whether or not one to go through the Neo-Arashian Seis' plan, but, well, sadly Lucy is captured, and she's gonna be fused with the Infinity Clock to try and further their plans. So, You know what this means? Fairy Tail is gonna save the day. And the rest of the arc is mostly fight scenes, and actually really good ones. But it's so long overdue that it's just not interesting. I mean, I liked the fight with Aragorn beforehand. I thought the reveal of Imitation was fantastic, since it was foreshadowed, and you had no way of knowing that the girl in the Key to the Starry Heavens book was actually meant to be Imitation / Michelle. And I do think the fights with the Reborn Irrational States members are actually pretty good. I think the fight with Mira Jane versus Racer was short, but actually pretty good. Angel's fight with Gray is actually really moving. It has a lot of things about valuing your life rather than chipping away at it to do more. And the fight with Midnight is actually really good too, especially with Imitation on the side. The only fight I really didn't find myself too invested in was Erza versus Cobra, but that fight's still actually pretty good. I think the location was good, I just think it was a bit slower. Nevertheless though. And she actually tries to free Lucy from the clock, in actually a pretty moving scene of her realizing that she was doing the wrong thing. And Midnight, in a actually pretty villainous blast, completely reverts Michelle to her original form, as a doll, called Gonzalez. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait, Lucy's sister was actually a doll? There's a reason why I say sort of, because this twist, despite being not really that well foreshadowed, actually does make a whole lot of sense. You see, as a child, Lucy had a doll named Michelle that was given to her by Layla, the mother of Lucy. However, when Layla died, every time Lucy held Gonzalez, the doll that Michelle was, she got bad memories, She's like, my mother gave me this, and so she put the doll in the attic because she just didn't want to think about her mother and just forgot about it in the process. And the doll felt lonely. She's like, Lucy isn't with me. I remind her of her mother and all that jazz, and it was incredibly guilty. That is, until Midnight, during the time skip, came to the Hartfilia estate and offered to give the doll flesh and blood in a living form if it served him. And, well, she did, and realized she was being tricked. I find this very emotional, not wanting to be forgotten. I really like that, and I do appreciate how she does redeem herself. And we see Lucy, despite the fact that Lucy doesn't see Michelle ever again after this, I do like how it did mean a lot to her, and Lucy does understand what she was going for. And while the entire climax of them saving Lucy, defeating Midnight, putting the Infinity Clock out of commission is great stuff, let's be real here, people. It comes too late, and it won't hold up the rest of this arc. And that's basically it. This is no question my least favorite arc of Fairy Tail, and it's sad since there are some genuinely good moments here. I praise the intro and credits. I love the concept of Edless/Earthling representation, though an execution could have been better. I also gotta give massive credits to the dev team for actually making this arc come to life. I appreciate Lucy and Michelle. I thought the fight scenes, while short, were solid even if they cut away a lot. And it gives more closure to Jude, since his death in the manga wasn't really all that capitalized on. And seeing the Irrational Says come back was also pretty cool, but come on, people. When you measure that to all the mediocre or outright bad stuff, you can see why I am massively let down. As the defender of non-faithful source material things in the past, this could have been my go-to avenue for supporting my claim of defending source material inconsistency, but it isn't. Like, I don't even know if a crowd that likes this arc. Like, I know there is a crowd of people that do kind of like this arc and appreciate it for being there. Honestly, I appreciate it for being there. But I just don't find myself wanting to rewatch this arc. Keep in mind, I have defended exclusive stuff, whether it be Makai Tree arc, the entirety of Hellsting Classic. Why this arc was so dry is just beyond me. Did I like it? I guess. But I don't find myself wanting to rewatch it. I would much rather watch WATV because that series is short, and while it does have really stupid episodes, I at the very least had more fun with WATV, because I look for rewatchability in my things. And with Fairy Tail being a long series that I would want to rewatch anyways, this is a massive stick in the mud. And I just don't see myself wanting to come back here. Like, maybe if I do a massive re-binge of all the arcs again, I of course would do it. But like, I could rewatch Tower of Heaven, Tartaros, Grand Magic Games, which is really long, at the flip of a coin. But this one, I just can't. Because, you want to know why? It's like I said, the progression. More importantly, this arc didn't need to be 26 episodes. Legit, the story could have been told with less cutaways in about half of that, and it would have been easier to watch and easier for me to defend. But because there's so much fluff, I just don't have that much fun here. And there is fluff in other arcs, but they're more fun. And if I don't have fun, then what's the point? With that said, though, I do appreciate Key to Starry Heavens for being in Fairy Tail. I don't know where this series would be without it, and I do think that it made my watch of Grand Magic Games much better. So, for me, Key to Starry Heavens is still a 5 out of 10, but I still would rather watch WATV. And if you know anything about me and my relationship with WATV, I think that says something. But, this concludes the very first quiz over analytical tangents. If you want more of this video, like, share, subscribe, comment, because I don't know if you guys like this sort of video or not. But, I hope you enjoyed it. Anyways, I'm Quinn866. Have a good one.